Alright, so we've got the drawing there in AutoCAD which has the ground floor outlined. I might just freeze the layer with my floor area polyline because I don't need that for the time being, and now we can look at bringing in a satellite image to get some more site information into the project. And so a really good resource for satellite views is 6maps, which is a government-run service. And so you can just Google 6maps, just type in SIX, the number, maps, and then it will take you to this. Well, maybe I'll open it again from scratch. So, oops, it's going a bit slow. Chooses now to freeze. There we go. Okay, so once you go and find 6maps, open it up, and it'll have a message telling you that Chrome and Firefox are better. But I'm using Internet Explorer while I can because it's about to be phased out, unfortunately, and replaced with the new Microsoft one, which doesn't look as good to me. I've used it and it's still got a way to go. So anyhow, I like IE. I know not many people do, but I still think it's good. And so anyhow, Chrome will work as well. And if you search there with the address, it tends to work better. So here it has opened up with the view, but normally when you first start it will be zoomed right out on the whole of New South Wales, like that. And so you can just type in the address, 10 Kensington Street, Chippendale, and it should, once you click on the result that it finds, take you right there, so you can see it's put the flag there. And zooming in, like I said before, normally it's a really good resource and it is higher resolution than Google Maps most of the time, but this is one of the first I've done for a while close to the inner city, and Google seem to have redone their satellite images. So this is the Google one, and notice they are identical. So even down to, like, you can tell from the cars' positions, they are the same. So Google have picked up their act, and they do update things, but with some of the outer suburbs, I know the Google ones are much lower quality. So it just depends. But here, I'm going to use the Google one because it's got these labels for different features that will remind you what you might want to include on your locality drawings. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so one of the first things you should do for any proposal is a site analysis drawing. So you're analysing not just your site but what's surrounding it, like you're saying, and that helps you determine what's appropriate for the design. So I'm going to do 2 screen captures. I'm going to do one as close as possible, so that's as far as I can zoom in, and Control Alt print screen is often a good option. So the print screen key on a PC is usually above the insert key. It's the one that's on these computers says print screen stroke system request next to scroller in the group of 3 buttons that are together above the group of 6. So again, Control Alt print screen should do the current window, and then a good way to save it is using, well, I like to use Paint first. Photoshop does work as well, and oops. So that's always an option, but Paint is something you'll always have. You won't always have Photoshop on every computer, and it's an easy one to use. So you can just Control V, and that will paste it into Paint, and you can use that to crop the view as well. If you want to tidy it up there, you can use the select button to choose your area. That should be good enough. And then crop, and that's going to be good enough. So I will save you a copy of this, but just make sure you do know how to do that. And I'll save it into your resources folder there. So I'll call it Satellite. I always forget, it's a double L or one L? One L, yeah. So Satellite close-up, and I'll do another one, zoomed out a bit to get a bit more of the locality. So again, Control-Alt, print screen. Oh, this is just Google Maps. So in 6 maps, it'll give you the location, but I didn't search for it, so here it's just come. So we know though the building, so that should be easy to work out. And so then again in Paint, I'll start just with a new file, and then Control V, zoom out, select the area I want, crop it, save as, Satellite, locality, I'll save them as PNGs. You might prefer JPEGs, but PNGs are a good format. Okay, so now in AutoCAD, I can insert those. On the Insert tab, you can just choose Image, I think, or is it? No, sorry, you've got to go to Attach now, and then from the menu that comes up down the bottom, you can choose. Just make sure it's on all image files. Then I'll browse to that folder. So again, in Construction 2, CAD Resources, and not CAD Resources, Resources AD Design, and then I put it into Photos. And so Satellite close-up, I'll start with. Open, and then I'm going to turn off the option for scale because I'm going to scale it once it's been inserted. But I'm going to start with a scale below that we'll try 100 and we'll see if that's a good starting point. So I'm just going to click OK and then place it to the right, and you can see that's giving me a decent size. It's obviously smaller than it needs to be, but again, that does make things easier. So just remember that when you insert an image, by default they'll be very small, and putting a scale factor in can help to make it manageable. So I'll bring the locality one in as well the same way, and so again there, just typing in 100 for the scale, making sure the tick box for scale and rotation is off, but for insertion is on, and I'll just place that maybe a bit further away. I need some room to work with, so I'll just put it above here. Alright, so first thing is to get the angle right, and now at this point it's maybe worth looking at having an extra drawing for the site drawing. So this is the ground floor plan, and so we need to have another drawing for the site. So I'm going to copy, well for now I'll just copy all of it except maybe the text I don't need. No, it doesn't hurt, just do the text as well. You can always delete it. Okay, so I'm going to copy all of that over to one side. Then we'll just over to the right here. Turn ortho on to keep it in a straight line. Always helps to keep things lined up where you can. So here, my site plan will be over here to the right, but if I can keep it in line with that floor plan that I've drawn, and then I can project things across when it's a useful option. And so the site plan will probably be at a different scale, so this border probably won't apply. And so if you remember, this original border was for 1 to 100. So looking at the, it's not giving us the size there, so I'd have to measure that. So I'll just measure quickly to remind you. Okay, so the dimensions there, if you don't remember, 42,000 by 29,700. If you remember, so that's a A3 page times 100. So this one will also be an A3 page, but I'm going to do it for 1 to 200. So simply put, that means I'm going to scale it by 2. So I've just clicked on the base point there on the corner, and now 2, enter, will set that scale factor. So that's going to be the size of this site plan relative to the sheet. We'll set it up much better when we do layouts, but I think it really helps to have those things set out. So I'll move this image to one side for now, just to give me a bit more room. Because, and this one as well. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Straight. So yeah.
Move stuff for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm going to do now is move this border as well. So with that, because we probably want that when we do the site plan, we want the building to be roughly in the centre of the page, and then we're going to draw things that are outside of the building, and we'll base that on what's in the satellite. So that's the next thing now, getting this satellite to relate to the building. So looking at the satellite here, you can see that we have the two streets that the building's on the corner of, Dwyer Street and Kensington Street. So it's probably a good time to think about labelling these on the drawing. Okay, so Dwyer Street we have along the side here, and then Kensington Street on the bottom. And so here, do you remember which text you use to get text at an angle? Single line text. So if you're wondering why you have the two, multi-line and single line, you can use multi-line obviously even if you want to just do one line of text. So you might wonder why you'd ever use single line, but one of the main reasons is if you need it to be rotated. So I'm just going to go to choose that, single line text. And I'm going to click a point by snapping to the wall to get it exactly at the same angle. And then I'm going to choose another point following along the edge of the wall. Okay, so then it's Dwyer Street, so I like to put a space between the text for things like street names. It reads better, and I'll put another one in between there. So obviously double E. But notice how it follows exactly along the angle of the wall, but when you're editing it, we'll put it back to being straight. And so I'm just going to go to properties there. And so you can see we've got the style still set to notes. So I'm going to make a new text style and call this, say, street names. Just so you know how to change a text style after you've made it. And so I just like to use style, old-fashioned styles like Times New Roman for things like this. The height really doesn't matter here, you can always change that afterwards, but maybe 5 as a starting point is good. Okay, so now, if I change the style to street names, it should pick up all of that. But if you want to, you can always change the height afterwards. So the height isn't fixed by the style. You can adjust it. So I'm just trying to get that in a better location. Oops, it's just snapping to other things. There we go. And, oh, sorry, it's a bit low. Okay, so then for the other text, again, single line text I'll use, just to show you a couple of the issues there. If I click a start point, notice how it's remembered the old angle. So if you press enter, like you might be used to, it'll put it at the same angle as the previous text. And I don't want that, so I'm going to type 0 to get it to go straight or to the right again. And then, oh yes, so it's picked up my new style. So Kensington Street, again putting spaces in between each letter. And single line text, unlike multi-line text, you can just press enter twice to finish it. So that will help a lot, again, to remind us what's happening once we start working with the satellite, because obviously they're labelled there as well. So it's going to help a lot now to have some lines drawn on this satellite image to help rotate and also to scale it. So I'm just going to use layer 0 because we'll delete these lines afterwards. So here I'm just going to draw a line from the corner point of the building, following along the edge there that is adjoining Dwyer Street. That's as good as it can be. Never going to be perfect because satellite views are still perspective views. And so notice how the building here looks like it sticks into our building, but of course it doesn't. It's just that that's a higher building, and so we're viewing it in perspective, and it looks what's overhanging the other building. So again, here I'm just drawing another line now from that same corner point, following along as best I can the angle of that wall. And again, notice it is in perspective, so I've just got to use judgment and work out what's the best line to follow. Again, don't try and make it millimetre perfect. That's not really the point of this. But we do want to try and get the angles as close as possible. So that'll do. And right, so now I'm going to start by rotating so that the line for Kensington Street is at 0 degrees. And because both of these images are at the same angle, I can rotate them together. So I'm going to select all of this, the two images and my two lines, and then I'm going to use rotate. I'm going to use the corner there as my base point. Okay, so that's all pretty straightforward, just rotating as you would normally. Now here's the trick. You can use the reference option. So if you right click, you can choose reference, and then choose the same base point and then the other end of that line. So that's basically setting a new starting angle. So notice how now that drag line that I've got, that dashed line that you can see coming out, follows the angle that is Kensington Street. And now I'll turn ortho back on and get it to snap to 0 degrees. So that means now, if we look at these images, Kensington Street's horizontal. And I'll move this other one again over to the side. Oh, now I was a bit silly. I cut the scale off. Sorry, I'm so used to using the other one. You're going to hate me. I'm going to do all of that again. And so where's paint? So silly. Okay, they've moved the scale. So down here you have the scale now. It used to be up in here, and with 6 maps it still is, but with this one you can see there it is. So I've got to do that again. It just means I'll save the images for you again, doing that whole process, which is again a bit of a pain, but I'll just have to do that. So, yep. So here what I might do, instead of cropping it, is just save the whole thing. Some of us have it open, so I have to save it as a new version. And then the other one, zoomed out a bit. Oh, that was clever. That one was close up, not locality. This one's locality. Okay, so it won't take long to fix, so just basically doing the same thing again. Yeah, I'll do it all again from scratch, so I'll delete those. And insert, attach. And again, it's exactly the same as before, won't take long. Okay, so again, just a couple of lines. So here we go, I'm not necessarily trying to trace the walls, just trying to get the angle to match the main thing. The boundary. But remember the building projects out, so the the wall, you're viewing at an angle there. Okay, so again, I'll show you that rotate option, so all of it selected. Rotate. Base point on the corner of those two lines. Right click, choose reference, choose that same base point again, and then the other end of that line for Kensington Street, and then with ortho on, snap it to the right to get it to be 0 degrees. Right, so notice how here, this time I have the scale there, and that's really important. So we know how big 5 meters is on this image. So I'm going to select, firstly, so I'll measure that. So I'll do the maths first. So using just the measure tool, going to go from the centre to the centre. So always with computer graphics, usually with hand-drawn graphics these days as well, but always with computer graphics, you measure to the centre of the line. That's just the way it is. Yeah, that's the way it should be drawn. So in the old days, not everyone did this. I think it should have always been to the centre, but talk to a lot of older architects and they'll tell you that it should be to one side of the line, which makes sense according to one way of thinking about it, but I don't think ever really was the correct way of doing it, but that's the way that a lot of things used to be drawn. If you think about it enough, you realise that it's not really ever a correct way to do it, but that's the way people, without thinking too deeply about it. I know a guy wrote a thesis about this, and he's adamant that you've got to do it to one side of the line, and I think his whole thesis was wrong, personally, but anyhow, luckily the guys who do computer graphics went, no, it's to the centre of the line. And when you think about it, it really has to be. Any other way is just too much extra work and doesn't help you at all. So, so anyhow, centre of the line with computer graphics, but if you get a hand-drawn drawing, try and work out how they've done it before you measure. So, I've measured there the distance to be, so you hear the first measurement, 2, 3, 5, 2. We're not going to worry about the extra decimal places there. So just rounding it off to 2352. So we know how big it is, and we know how big it should be. Right, so that's all the information we need. So 2352. We've got to remember that. So I've selected the image and the two lines, and now clicking on the scale button. The base point here doesn't really matter, but I'll just choose the corner there of the building. And so, this is the formula you need to remember. Your scale factor is always going to be the size you want it to be over the size it is. Okay, so, and this is the way you scale everything when you're trying to scale it to the right size. Okay, so the size you want it to be, well, we know that, it's 5,000. Right, it tells us on the scale bar. Right, that's the size it should be. This drawing should have that scale bar at exactly 5,000. That should be its real size. So that's the size we want it to be, 5,000. Over the size it is, 2352. So that's the size we've measured. So that's our scale factor. Yeah. And if you're having trouble remembering which number goes first, it's usually the bigger one. Not always, but in this situation, usually. Okay, so the scale button up here. Yeah. Okay, so to check it, it doesn't matter if you don't do it properly, because you'll find out afterwards when you go to measure it again, and this makes it clearer what we've just done. If I go and measure this now, it should be 5 metres, and what we're trying to achieve in AutoCAD is having everything at 1:1. So I've measured that. It's 5,023. But remember, we're measuring pixels, so that's easily accurate enough. You'd never need it any more accurate than that. And so we can check it further though. Now, have you had this happen in AutoCAD where you start zooming and it won't let you zoom any further? So double click at the wheel, and that should solve that problem nowadays, so fix that. So I'll move this other satellite image over. That's going to have a different scale factor because that's smaller. And so here now, I don't need those lines, those two lines anymore. You can delete those. Now I can move this satellite image over now to the site drawing and check to see if it's lining up. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm just panning, so that's a really good trick in AutoCAD. If you pan, it'll hide the image temporarily, and then you can see the line work, so that's a really good way of just visually checking them before sending it to the back. So now I want to send this image behind the line work. And so to do that, you don't do it with layers in AutoCAD. Just select the thing you want to move to the back, right click, and then use draw order, and then send to back. And there we go. So now I can see the line work over the top. It's never going to be perfect because, again, remember the satellite is in perspective. So what the purpose of this is to draw the streets and the adjoining buildings around our building in the site plan, which is an important thing to show on drawings like this. And now what I want to do is the same thing with this larger scale drawing. So with the drawing site that show also image that shows a larger portion of the city. So it's going to again draw a couple of lines to help me with that. Remember, this one should be straight, even though it doesn't look it there, it should be. We don't really need that actually, it's just to give me the corner point. What we really need to measure is the scale here. So the same method as before, I'm going to use measure tool, measuring from centre to centre. So 2357 is the size it is. So using scale. Okay, so the size we want it to be this time is 20,000, 20 metres over 2357. And that didn't work. What happened there? I think I typed it for the base point, so I'll just do that again. I didn't click a base point. I always forget this. With scale, you need to click a base point, so I'll use the corner of the building there. And so 20,000 over 2357. So you can see that's really big, and it's going to get in the way, but that's okay. We'll hide it in a second anyway, so I'll just move this to the same place. So notice how it lines up pretty well with the other image, so I'll prove that to you. I'm going to put them onto different layers now. So it's going to get in the way of other things. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to move all of this over just to get some more room so that we can have it turned on while we're working on the floor plan. Now this one, I'm going to select it and again draw order centre back. So notice how it all lines up. So this here is the image that's showing the more high res, but the streets there you can see do line up pretty well, so we must have scaled it the right way. And so it works really well. So the things that are further away aren't as high resolution, but we've still got them there as a reference, and the things that are closer we've got nice detail to work with. So we'll start drawing based on that afterwards, but the first thing is to get those things in there at scale. So I'll give you time. Oh, and maybe just the last thing I'll show you there is make sure you make some layers for those things. So so image, and one of them is going to be for 1 to 200, and the other one is probably going to be for 1 to 500. So I've got those two layers for the two images. Okay, so the bigger one will be for 1 to 200. Oh, sorry, for 1 to 500, sorry. And then the smaller one will be for 1 to 200. And we can easily manage those, and I'll show you before long how you can set up layouts, and that way you don't have to keep turning the layers on and off, but for the time being you can just manually turn the layers on and off. Once you've got some layouts set up, then it'll be all set up whenever you open them. But there we are. So like I said, I'll give you some time to have a go at that.